The morning the magazine arrived, Christine Barker was sitting at a breakfast table in a penthouse apartment that wasn't hers, eating food she hadn't cooked, wearing clothes paid for by a man she had known for 7 weeks. She picked up the copy of Forbes from the side table, the one her new boyfriend had left there, the way people leave things around when they want to be seen as the kind of person who reads Forbes. And she turned to the feature section, and there he was, her ex-husband. The man she had left 6 months ago, the man she had called a failure to his face and to her friends for 4 years. The man who drove the rusted blue Kenworth truck that she had spent 367 days asking him to get rid of because it embarrassed her when it was parked in front of their house. His name was in large print above a photograph that showed him standing in a warehouse the size of 3 football fields, hundreds of trucks visible in rows behind him. The headline read, "The man who built an empire nobody saw coming." Christine set the magazine down. She picked it up again. She read the first paragraph. Ryan Barker, 38, has spent the last 6 years constructing one of the most quietly formidable logistics networks in the country. His company, Barker Distribution Group, now operates 412 trucks, 11 regional warehouses, and 3 port access facilities across the Gulf Coast. His net worth is estimated at. She stopped reading. She set the magazine face down on the table. She sat for a long time, because there was a question that was going to follow her for the rest of her life. A question that had a very specific answer, and the answer was almost impossible to sit with. How long had she been sitting across the table from this and not seen it? Let me tell you, you're watching this and you haven't hit the like button yet. That like button is what makes stories like this reach the people who need them. Hit it now. Subscribe too. Free. Takes 2 seconds. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Ryan Barker grew up understanding logistics before he knew the word for it. His grandfather had owned a single flatbed truck. His father had owned 2. By the time Ryan was 12, he was spending summers at the yard not playing, working, helping with maintenance, learning the routes, understanding the relationship between load capacity and fuel cost, and delivery timing, in the instinctive way of someone who has absorbed a system rather than studied it. He had not gone to a prestigious college. He had gone to a state school on a partial scholarship, studied business, graduated with a respectable GPA and a head full of ideas about scale and efficiency that he had no immediate way to test. He started with 1 truck, his father's, which he had bought from his father at fair market value because Ryan didn't believe in inheriting things he hadn't earned. He drove it himself. He slept in it on long hauls. He knew every mile of every route he ran. By year 3, he had 3 trucks. By year 5, he had 11, a small office, and a logistic software system he had built with a developer he had found through a forum and paid in installments. By year 6, the year Christine left him, he had 41 trucks, 2 warehouses, and a regional contract with a national retail chain that was going to expand significantly in the following 18 months. He had told Christine about none of this, not because he was hiding it from her, because he had learned, watching his grandfather and his father, what happened when people knew you had money before the money was real. His grandfather had been approached by family members with loans the moment word spread. His father had lost a partnership to someone who saw the potential and moved faster than his father's trust could keep up. Ryan Barker was not going to let the thing he was building get ahead of what was real. He was going to be sure, absolutely, undeniably sure, before he let anyone see the full picture, including his wife. That decision had costs. He could see that now from a distance. He hadn't fully seen it at the time. Christine Barker was 36 when she met Ryan, and 38 when she married him, and 41 when she left. She was not a bad person. It's important to say that because the story of what she did sits differently if you understand her as a fully human person rather than a convenient villain. She had grown up in a family that measured stability through visible markers: the house, the car, the neighborhood, the visible evidence of a life that was going somewhere. Ryan drove an old truck and came home smelling like diesel and worked hours that made no sense if he was just a mid-level logistics coordinator. which was how he had described his work for 4 years. He was frequently tired. He was sometimes absent in the way of people who are managing more than they're showing. He declined social invitations she considered important on the grounds that he had to be up at 4 in the morning. She had asked him, more than once, where this was going. He had told her, more than once, that it was going somewhere good, and he needed her to trust him. She had tried for 4 years. On the night she told him she was leaving, she said, "I'm 41 years old, Ryan. I can't keep waiting for something you can't even describe to me." He had looked at her for a long moment. He had said, "I can describe it. I just need a little more time." She had said, "I don't have more time." She left for a man named Victor, who ran a real estate development company and drove a new Mercedes and wore suits that fit and had a lifestyle that was visible and confirmed. Ryan had stood in the kitchen after she left and stayed very still for a long time. Then he had gone back to work. There is a woman named Amy. She needs to be in this story because she is, in the end, the most important person in it. Chen was Ryan's operations manager. Not from the beginning, from year 4, when the business had grown enough to require someone whose entire job was to know where everything was and keep it running. She was 32, methodical, possessed of the specific intelligence that knows how to manage complexity without drama, and she had been present for the part of Ryan's life that nobody else saw. She had seen him sleeping in the office when a contract deadline required it. She had seen him on the phone at midnight trying to manage a truck breakdown in a city 3 states away. She had seen him eat lunch at his desk for 6 months straight because he was managing a cash flow crunch that would have alarmed someone less disciplined. She had also seen him go home every night to a marriage that was visibly fraying and never complain about it to anyone at work. When Christine left, Amy had said, "Are you okay?" Ryan had said. "I'll be okay," Amy had said. "I know. I've been watching you be okay through worse things than this." That had been the end of the conversation. But Ryan had thought about it for a long time. The year after Christine left was the year everything broke through. Not because her leaving cleared the way, that would be too neat and too false, but because the timing happened to coincide with a series of business developments that Ryan had been building toward for 3 years, and which converged in the 14 months following his divorce filing. The retail chain contract expanded. A second national retailer approached them through the first one's recommendation. The port access deal that Ryan had been quietly negotiating for 8 months closed in March. By the end of that first year, Barker Distribution Group had 106 trucks. Ryan hired a full executive team. He moved the company from its original office, a converted storage unit with 2 desks and a whiteboard, to a proper commercial space. He brought in a chief financial officer who looked at the company's books and told Ryan that the valuation, conservatively estimated, was something Ryan had heard out loud from someone else's mouth for the first time. He had known, he had been tracking it for years, but hearing it said by a qualified professional in a formal context made it real in a different way. He drove home in the old blue Kenworth that night, not because he didn't have other vehicles, he did, but because the truck was the beginning of the thing, and he needed to feel the beginning of it while he sat with the scale of what it had become. He parked outside the house he now lived in, alone, and he sat in the cab for a while, and he thought about Christine's face the night she left. "I can't keep waiting for something you can't even describe to me." He could have described it. He had chosen not to, and he understood why he had made that choice, and he also understood that the choice had consequences that he had to own. He went inside. He called Amy. "The CFO's valuation came in," he said. She was quiet. And he told her the number. She was quiet for longer. "Ryan," she said. "I know," he said. "What do you feel?" she said. He thought about it honestly. "Like I want someone to know what it took," he said. "I know what it took," she said. He had thought about that sentence for weeks afterward. The Forbes story came about because a financial journalist named David Park had been tracking the logistics sector and noticed a company that had grown at an unusual rate without making any of the noise that growing companies typically made. He had called Ryan's office, Ryan's communications team. He had one now, had said he would consider it. Ryan had considered it for 3 weeks. He said yes for a specific reason. The profile ran in the issue that Christine read at Victor's breakfast table. Ryan had not arranged this. He had not timed it for that reason. He had said yes to the profile because he had decided that the time of keeping things invisible had passed, and because the profile allowed him to control the narrative of what he had built and why he had built it the way he had. He had not been thinking about Christine when he said yes, but he had been thinking about the truck. He had specifically asked the photographer to include it. Like this video right now, you can feel where this is heading, and that like button is just sitting there. Hit it. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? Now let's get to the moment Christine makes her call. Christine had Ryan's number. She had not deleted it. She had not called it in 6 months. She sat at Victor's breakfast table, with the Forbes issue face down on the table, and she stayed very still for a long time, and then she called it. It rang 4 times, Ryan answered. Christine, he said. His voice was the same. That was the thing that hit her, exactly the same. The same cadence, the same steadiness. The voice of someone who had been expecting her call, and was not surprised by it, and was also not particularly moved by it. "I saw the magazine," she said. "I know," he said. She was quiet for a moment. "Why didn't you tell me?" she said. "I did tell you," he said. "I told you it was going somewhere good. I told you I needed you to trust me." "You didn't tell me it was this," she said. "No," he said. "I didn't." "Why not?" He thought about it. "Because I needed to know if you would stay," he said. "Not for this. For the truck and the early mornings and the not knowing yet. I needed to know if you'd stay for that." A long silence. "That's not fair," she said. "Maybe not," he said. But it was honest. She was quiet again. Then, "Ryan, I made a mistake." He said nothing. "I left and I made a mistake, and I know that now, and I think if we could, Christine." His voice was gentle. Not angry, just final. "I'm not angry at you. I understand why you left. I understand what you saw and what you needed and what I couldn't give you or wouldn't give you, or both. But I can't go back to something that required you to see a magazine cover to find value in." Silence. "I need you to understand that's not about punishing you," he said. "I genuinely hope you're well. I hope Victor is a good man. I hope you find what you were looking for." He paused. "But I can't give it to you." "Not anymore," she said. "Is there someone else?" He was quiet for a moment. "There's someone who was there before you left," he said, "and during and after. She never asked me to describe where it was going. She just helped me get there." Christine hung up. She picked up the Forbes magazine. She looked at his face on the cover. She put it down. Victor came back into the room with fresh coffee, and she smiled at him, and the smile didn't reach anything. Amy Chen had been Ryan's operations manager for 4 years when Christine left. She had been his business partner for 2 of those years. A formal partnership, equity stake, documented and legal. Established quietly when Ryan had understood that what Amy had been doing for the company was foundational in a way that needed to be recognized structurally rather than just compensated. She had not been in love with Ryan when Christine was there. She had respected him. She had understood him in the specific way you understand someone whose work you've watched at close range for years, whose decision-making you've seen under pressure, whose character you've observed in the particular clarity of difficult moments. After Christine left, she had watched Ryan carefully for 6 months, not watching for vulnerability, watching to see how he handled it, because she believed that how people handled loss was one of the most honest things about them. He had handled it by going back to work, not in the brittle, avoiding way, but in the grounded way of someone who knows that the work is real and everything else is still being figured out. 6 months after Christine left, Amy had said, on a Thursday evening when they were the last 2 people in the office and the city was dark outside the windows, "I want to tell you something, and I need you to know that I'm telling you because I mean it, not because the timing is what it is." Ryan had looked at her. She had told him. He had looked at her for a long time after she finished. He had said, "I think I've been not looking at this for about 2 years, because looking at it felt like something I didn't have the right to." "And now," she said. "Now I'd like to look at it," he said, "if you're willing to let me do that slowly." "You do everything slowly," she said. "I've been watching you build things for 4 years. I know how you work." He had laughed at that, the real kind. Ryan and Amy were married 18 months after the Forbes issue ran. Not a large ceremony, not a statement. A morning event, the courthouse, and then a dinner with 12 people who actually knew them, in a private room at a restaurant near the first warehouse Ryan had ever rented, because Amy had suggested it and Ryan had said it was perfect. The blue Kenworth was parked outside the restaurant. Amy had insisted on that too. Christine attended Victor's charity gala 3 months later. She was still with Victor, who was a decent enough man, though not the one she had imagined standing next to when she imagined standing next to someone, and she saw Ryan's name on the donor wall, a significant contribution to the Children's Literacy Foundation that the gala supported. She looked at his name on the wall for a moment. Then she moved on. Ryan didn't know she had been there. He had sent the donation through his company's charitable giving program and had not attended the gala himself because he and Amy were in Portugal for their honeymoon and had no particular reason to be elsewhere. He was on the coast of Portugal at that moment, watching the sun go down over the Atlantic, with his wife beside him and her hand in his. She said, "What are you thinking about?" he said. "The first route I drove, Baton Rouge to Memphis, overnight. I ate gas station food for 6 hours and barely broke even." She looked at the ocean. "Now I'm here," he said. She leaned against him. The sun went down. The truck was parked back home in the company yard, maintained and ready, the same rusted blue it had always been. Ryan had been offered a great deal of money for it over the years. He had declined every offer. Some things, he believed, were worth keeping exactly as they were, not because they were valuable in the way that things are usually valuable, but because they contained a truth that he intended to stay close to for the rest of his life. The truck was the truth. Everything else was what the truth had made possible. Ryan and Amy were married 18 months after the Forbes issue ran. Not a large ceremony, not a statement. A morning event, the courthouse, and then a dinner with 12 people who actually knew them, in a private room at a restaurant near the first warehouse Ryan had ever rented, because Amy had suggested it and Ryan had said it was perfect. The blue Kenworth was parked outside the restaurant. Amy had insisted on that too. Christine attended Victor's charity gala 3 months later. She was still with Victor, who was a decent enough man, though not the one she had imagined standing next to when she imagined standing next to someone, and she saw Ryan's name on the donor wall, a significant contribution to the Children's Literacy Foundation that the gala supported. She looked at his name on the wall for a moment. Then she moved on. Ryan didn't know she had been there. He had sent the donation through his company's charitable giving program and had not attended the gala himself because he and Amy were in Portugal for their honeymoon and had no particular reason to be elsewhere. He was on the coast of Portugal at that moment, watching the sun go down over the Atlantic, with his wife beside him and her hand in his. She said, "What are you thinking about?" he said. "The first route I drove, Baton Rouge to Memphis, overnight. I ate gas station food for 6 hours and barely broke even." She looked at the ocean. "Now I'm here," he said. She leaned against him. The sun went down. The truck was parked back home in the company yard, maintained and ready, the same rusted blue it had always been. Ryan had been offered a great deal of money for it over the years. He had declined every offer. Some things, he believed, were worth keeping exactly as they were, not because they were valuable in the way that things are usually valuable, but because they contained a truth that he intended to stay close to for the rest of his life. The truck was the truth. Everything else was what the truth had made possible.